Good morning guys, welcome to your daily Jackanory episode. We're on to part 3 of the twits. Day 1 we met the characters, and remember yesterday we left it with Mrs Twit thinking she was shrinking. She wasn't very happy about it, and Mr Twit was really enjoying Mrs Twit not being very happy about it. These two were constantly playing tricks on each other and taking great pleasure in doing so. Remember, Mrs Twit isn't really shrinking. It's Mr Twit that's adding bits of wood to her walking stick that's making her feel like that. So we're going to pick up the story with Mrs Twit feeling particularly fed up about this terrible shrinking illness that she half believes she has. Mrs Twit sat down. She was fed up. Mr Twit was pointing at her and shouted, "There you are! You're sitting in your old chair and you've shrunk so much your feet are barely touching the ground." Now Mrs Twit was sitting in her favourite chair, and by golly she was right. Her feet were almost not touching the ground anymore. Mr Twit, you see, had been just as clever with her chair as with the walking stick. Every night when he'd gone downstairs and stuck a little bit extra onto the stick, he'd done the same to the 4 legs of her chair. "Just look at you sitting there in the same old chair. You shrunk so much, your feet are nearly dangling in the air now." He found this particularly funny. Mrs Twit went white with fear. "You've got the strength. You've got the strength. You have got the strength. Ha, 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 ha." He was particularly enjoying this one. "Oh, this is terrible." Mrs Twit was almost in tears at the thought of this. Mr Twit was loving this trick. It was the best one he'd ever played. And he went on chanting around the house. "You've got the strength. You've got them so badly. You've got the strength. The most terrible case of strength I've ever seen. You've got the strength. You've got the strength." Now Mrs Twit was particularly frightened as he was going around chanting and reminding her of this terrible fate. But Mr Twit was still remembering the worms in the spaghetti, and he didn't feel sorry for her, and he was enjoying the moment. "I suppose you know what happens to people when they have the shrinks like you, Mrs Twit." "What? What happens? What do they do? What do they do? Is there a cure? Is there something they can do?" "Well, you see, your head shrinks into your neck, and your neck shrinks into your body, and your body, well, that shrinks into your legs. And your legs, you see, they shrink inside your feet. And in the end, there's nothing left of you but a pair of manky old shoes and a bundle of smelly clothes." "I can't bear it. It's a terrible, terrible disease. Oh, stop it happening. It sounds like the worst thing in the world. Oh, how long do I have, Mr Twit? How long before I finish up as a bundle of clothes and manky shoes?" Mr Twit put on a very solemn face. "Well, at the rate you're going, I'd say you've got about 10 days at the most. Not sure there's anything we can do either." "Anything we can do? There's got to be something we can do. I can't have 10 days till I turn into manky shoes." "Well," said Mr Twit, "there's only one real cure, I think, but it's never really been tried." "Tell me," she said. "Oh, tell me quickly. What could it be?" "Well, we'll have to hurry," said Mr Twit. "I'm ready. I'll hurry. I'll do anything you say on this one." "You won't last long if you don't listen to me," said Mr Twit. giving her another grisly grin.
What is it I must do, Mr Twit?
Well, you see, it's dangerous and it hasn't really worked before, but I think you're going to have to be stretched. So, he stretched her. Mr Twit led Mrs Twit outdoors where he had everything ready for the great stretching. He had 100 balloons and lots of string. He had a gas cylinder for filling the balloons up. He had fixed an iron ring into the ground. "Stand here on this spot," he said, pointing to the iron ring. He then tied Mrs Twit's ankles to the iron ring. When that was done, he began filling the balloons with gas. Each balloon was on a long string, and when it was filled with gas, it pulled on the string, trying to go up and up all the time. Mr Twit tied the end of the strings to the top half of Mrs Twit's body. Soon he tied it round her neck and under her arms and to her wrists and even to her hair. There were 50 coloured balloons floating in the air above Mrs Twit's head.
I'm stretching. I can feel I'm stretching.
Can you definitely feel it stretching, Mrs Twit?
Yes, I can definitely feel I'm stretching, Mr Twit. Thank you.
Mr Twit was loving this happening. He put on another 10 balloons. "You need more balloons because you need to stretch more. It's a very bad case of stretchiness." The upward pull became very strong indeed, and Mrs Twit was quite helpless now. With her feet tight to the ground and her arms pulled upwards by the balloon, she was completely unable to move. She was a prisoner, and Mr Twit had intended to go away and leave her like that for a couple of days. In fact, he was just about to leave her when Mrs Twit opened her mouth and said something very silly.
Are you sure my feet are tied properly to the ground? If those strings around my ankles break, it'll be goodbye for me. I'll keep rising into the air.
And that's what gave Mr Twit his second nasty idea.
There's enough pull here to take me all the way to the moon.
"To take you to the moon?" exclaimed Mr Twit. What a ghastly thought. We wouldn't want to do anything like that. Oh dear me, no, he thought in his mind. "Me most certainly wouldn't want to do that, Mrs Twit. Thank you for telling me."
Put some more string around my ankles quickly. I want to feel safe while I'm being stretched, you know.
"Very well, my little cheeky angel," said Mr Twit. And with a ghoulish grin on his lips, he knelt down at her feet. He took a small knife from his pocket, and with one quick slash he cut through the strings holding Mrs Twit's ankles to the iron ring. Well, she set off like a rocket.
Help! Save me, it's happened! I'm heading to Mars!
But there was no saving her now. In a few seconds she was high up in the blue sky and climbing fast. Mr Twit stood below looking up. "Oh, what a pretty sight," he said to himself. "How lovely all those balloons in the sky. What a marvellous bit of luck for me. At last the old hag is lost and gone forever." Mrs Balloon comes ballooning down. Mrs Twit may have been ugly and she may have been beastly, but she wasn't stupid. High up there in the sky she had a bright idea while she was rising.
If I can get rid of some of these balloons, I'm going to start coming down before I get to Mars.
She began biting through the strings that held the balloons to her wrists, arms and neck and hair. Each time she bit through a string and let the balloon float away, the upward pull reduced further and further and further, and she stopped climbing. When she had bitten through 20 strings, she stopped going up altogether. She stayed still in the air. She bit through one more string, and very slowly she began to float downwards. It was a calm day. There was no wind at all, and because of this Mrs Twit had gone absolutely straight up. So now she went absolutely straight down. As she floated gently down, Mrs Twit's petticoat billowed out like a parachute. It was a grand sight on a glorious day, and thousands of birds came flying in from miles around to stare as this extraordinary old woman landed back in the garden where she'd been fastened just a few minutes ago. And that's where we'll leave the adventure for today. Mr Twit's been particularly horrid, hasn't he, to his poor wife? But these tricks are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. This couple are really enjoying making themselves laugh at the expense of each other. And tomorrow we'll find out the next ghastly trick from this terrible pair of twits. Until then, take care, stay safe, and I look forward to telling you more stories